welcome to edition 8 of our Killa No Filla podcast with me, Rachel Fairburn and Kiri Pritchard-McLean. Before we start, we'll do our normal disclaimer. This isn't hero worship. We're not in love with these serial killers. We have a mutual interest and we're discussing the finer psychological points of them. We don't have any daddy issues, and the reason we're doing this podcast is because, if we're chatting about them, it stops us writing to them in prison. So this is episode number 8, and it's a big one.
It's a good, we decided to cash in on the old Bundy dollar, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. He's very popular still.
Worryingly so.
Worryingly so, very much.
But we'll get onto that in a bit. So we're doing Ted Bundy.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't got a nickname, actually, has he?
No, he hasn't.
But he's good in that he's like Bundy's like Britney or Madonna. That you know when you just need one name, he's that notorious. And there's something about him in particular that seemed to, because he's not the most prolific. Don't get me wrong, he did rack up the numbers, but there's something about him in particular that he seems to be
fascinated.
He's notorious, isn't he?
He is.
So
he's a right bastard.
He's a right old bastard.
He's a right
and he has. We'll start off as we would normally do and talk about his background, which is again, I'd say it's very typical of a serial killer's upbringing, isn't it?
So he was born in November 24th, 1946, in Philadelphia. Well, he was born in Vermont. He was born out of wedlock. He was born illegitimately to a young woman called Louise.
In one of those Centre for Unwed Women.
Yeah, Centre for Unwed Women, which sounds
horrible.
I just imagine it smells of domestos and it's really cold. So he was born at one of these places. He was brought up in Philadelphia by, it was his grandparents, but he thought that they were his parents and that his sister, his mother,
his
was
biological mother was raised
there
as his sister.
Thank God for that. So it takes someone in the countryside to make clarity. That
it takes someone whose both the parents have got adoptive brothers and sisters. So that's what it is. So I know all about the terminology. So his biological mother was raised as his sister, and his biological grandparents were raised as his parents, which obviously creates confusion. There is rumours as to who his biological father was, but no one really knows. But one of the rumours was that it was his biological mother's father who fathered him. Now, I'd like to say that is unsubstantiated. There's no physical evidence for that, but it's a pretty strong rumour. And his granddad, this guy, was quite the piece of work, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He was violent, aggressive. He used to beat his wife. He attacked his daughters on several occasions. One occasion, throwing them downstairs for getting up late.
That's unreasonable, isn't it?
Yeah, what a horrible way to wake up.
But I sleep through any other alarm, so it makes sense, really. He used to beat the family dog as well, which is horrible.
That's horrible. And he also used to swing cats round by the tail. Neighbourhood cats.
Yeah, neighbourhood cats.
I just imagine Top Cat. That's when I think of that.
But how was no one, like, if there's that guy in the village who swings cats, why did no one knock him out when they saw him do that?
Yeah, although in those days, it was the 40s, 50s, people bored.
Yeah, there's no TV was too expensive, wasn't
brilliant. Mr. Cowell's going to swing some cats round this afternoon. And we must say as well, Ted was actually born Ted Bundy. His surname was Cowell.
Yes, he was a Cowell. Yeah. And apparently his biological grandfather flew into a rage when someone questioned Ted's paternity. So there's something going on there. Oh, he also used to hear voices, didn't he?
Yeah, on several occasions, apparently, he was found to be talking to somebody who wasn't there.
So it's already there. We've got that predisposition to a mental kind of disorder, haven't we, in the family? And then the grandma, who was a victim of domestic violence at her husband's hands, she used to have regular electroshock therapy for being crazy.
Yeah, depression and various other things.
Although he claimed later on he came from a very idyllic upbringing. He obviously had a really horrible childhood filled with violence and fear.
And I think he sort of maybe, because he did have a bit of a superiority complex, didn't he? So I think he probably painted a rose-tinted version of
the all-American wonderful childhood. Apparently he once said to one of his cellmates or a friend, when they were saying, oh, it wasn't, so-and-so wasn't that bad. And he turned and he sort of spat at them, you're not the one who is illegitimate. So he had a big...
all right, Ted.
Yeah, all right, boastful. No, I'm not. But yeah, he had a bit of a complex about it. One of my favourite stories about him is that apparently when he was 3 years old, his auntie went to sleep. And when she woke up, he was standing by the bed. And he had placed knives all around her sleeping body. Which is really creepy, and presumably what John Lewis are going to do for their next Christmas advert.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, and they've cut the head off Monty the not Monty the Python, Monty the Penguin.
But I mean, he actually did that when he's 3 years old, which raises many questions about who's supervising this child.
Yeah, and how low do you keep your knives?
Yeah, how can you reach the knife drawer? I still have trouble now. 4 foot high. But yeah, it's strange things, and then. His mum, sister, confusing, Ted, then decided to move away with some relatives in Washington, I think it was. I don't know why she decided to move away.
Probably because
her father was a nutter.
Yeah.
That's always a big thing. So she moved away to live with some cousins. And then she met a chap called John Culpeper Bundy. Which is a good name, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a great name.
And she married him, and he was a lovely, by all accounts, a lovely man. Tried to treat Ted as if he was his own, included him in everything. They together had, not Ted and his, I'm not making this more sinister. Ted's mother, stroke sister, had 4 more children with John Culpeper Bundy. But Ted never really bonded with them, didn't really warm to them. He didn't like his stepfather. He thought his stepfather was stupid. He thought he didn't make enough money. He's just really resented him.
He didn't see himself as a Bundy, did he?
No, he saw himself as a Cowell, which he had a great uncle. Who was a music teacher at the University of Puget Sound, and he used to go and visit him, and he used to think, this is what I want to be. He's well respected. He's good at what he's doing. He's talented. He's doing well for himself, and Ted always wanted, that's what he wanted. He used to see his uncle as a role model. And that's where, his stepfather was never good enough. He wasn't rich enough, and that's all Ted wanted, to be admired, to be rich. All the things we all want, let's be honest.
Not all of us cut the heads off women there, do we? Some of us,
we don't.
Some of us go to the university in Salford and graft that way.
But he was an outsider as well, wasn't he? He was in the Scouts.
Yeah, and apparently he said he could never understand why people were friends when he was in the Scouts. He's like, I don't understand what anyone's getting out of this. And I've had some friendships which do feel like that. But yeah, he couldn't get his head around friendships in general. And yeah, he didn't, like I say, so didn't bond with his stepdad. Was in the Scouts, was in the church as well. So a bit of a pillar of the community type upbringing. Apart from all the animal violence and potentially sexual violence at home, but they think he might have murdered someone as young as 15 because there's rumours of him torturing animals and things when he was a young one.
Well, when he was about 14, 15, a young girl in his neighbourhood went missing, and she was an 8-year-old girl, and this young girl was she was connected to Ted in a way because his uncle taught her piano. Mm-hmm. So Ted probably would have come into contact with the girl. She went missing. Nobody, there was a huge search party.
Like 800 people.
800 people involved in the search for this young girl. The girl's name was Anne-Marie Burr, 8 years old. So 800 people looking for this little girl. Nobody thought Ted was involved with it, but he had been, as a youngster, he was shoplifting. He was
Peeping Tom, wanking in windows.
Yeah, wanking in windows.
I don't want to say Peeping Tom like some noble sport.
Yeah,
so what it is, he's wanking in windows.
It's a Peeping Tom.
Oh, it's so innocent. And once we've finished playing cricket, we'll go and be Peeping Toms.
Peeping Tom.
But yeah, he was typical sort of, he would steal things because of a sense of entitlement. So yeah, usual kind of like just a petty, a troublemaker, basically.
Yeah, some people do think that this was... And there's too much coincidence, if you ask me, that this little girl went missing. I think he did kill her. There's no evidence, but...
You got a feeling?
I've got a hunch about this. And I think I'll be writing to the prison service to have him reanimated because I think, yeah, he probably did it.
Yeah, it is quite a huge coincidence, isn't it? That this little girl disappears completely, and it just happens to be that Ted Bundy lives, that knows her and lives very close to her. But he did save a life. He got a commendation from the police for saving a 3-year-old from drowning. He was drowning, and Ted jumped in and saved him.
Only because he wasn't his type.
Yeah, that's because he was a little boy and he didn't have a sense of parting. So yeah, that's why he jumped in, and the police got a commendation. So that's quite impressive. But he did really well in high school. Was thought to be very bright, kept himself to himself, but was and was a bit hard to connect with, but did well academically. And then it unravelled a bit when he went to university, because he went to this massive university and he suddenly felt really anonymous and realised. Yeah, he wasn't very bright.
Yeah, outside of everything. He was at the University of Puget Sound, where his uncle was a music teacher, which was, again, like I say, a huge campus. And then he decided to change and go to the University of Washington to study Chinese.
That's a natural... We've all made rash decisions like that.
If you're struggling, right?
Don't pick Mandarin.
Don't pick Chinese. Maybe if you just
go for drama. That's what we all do.
Maybe
media studies
or something. A push, to give yourself a bit of a, But come on, Chinese.
Yeah, and while he was in college, so when he moved to Washington, he met Stephanie Brooks. Now, Stephanie Brooks will become quite important to this tale, which is unfortunate for her because she didn't do anything other than made the mistake of going out with a serial killer. So he met her. She was rich, she was bright, she was from a good family, and they went out together. And then she broke up with him when she graduated because she said that he had no ambition, he wasn't really going anywhere, and she kind of wanted a bit more from life. And apparently he was sort of a bit devastated by this.
Yeah, and he became a bit obsessed with her. And because she was everything he wanted to be. She had everything he wanted. She was rich, successful, very good at what she was doing and everything. And he was hurt about the fact that he'd been dumped. And I think, someone with an ego like Ted Bundy's, they're going to be hurt, aren't they?
Yeah. I think he struggled, didn't he, with any kind of rejection.
Yeah.
So her saying no and rejecting him for the specific reasons that he wasn't going anywhere would have been in direct conflict with what he thought about himself. So then this triggered some really bizarre behaviour. It
started a bit of a downward spiral for him, because then he decided that he wanted to... He went back to Philadelphia to visit his family. And he decided he wanted to check records about his birth and, who his father was and stuff, because he always suspected there was something wrong. He did suspect, he says, that he had a feeling that his sister was his mother.
And there was rumours that a cousin had tried to say that he had threatened to show him his birth certificate and say where he's really from when he was younger.
But he decided to take this upon himself, and he went to Vermont, to the home for unmarried mothers, and he found his records, and he found out his sister was his mother, and he was absolutely devastated by this. He hated the fact that it was illegitimate. He was very upset by it. You think he'd been dumped, and then he finds this out, and he felt betrayed by his mother, by this Stephanie girl. In fact, let's be fair to his mother, she was probably just trying to do the best for him at the time. But, obviously everything's a personal snub to Ted, isn't it? So he did what anyone would do, and he went back to Washington and studied psychology. That's what he did.
And he did quite well at that, apparently. He was well liked by his tutors. Did well on the course.
And he kept a lid on the crazy for a long time.
Yeah, or used himself as a case study secretly. Oh, obviously, I've got to keep my sources anonymous, but he was violent, rageous. But then he started going out with another girl, but got back with Stephanie, started working for the Republicans, was a bright star in the Republican Party and used to campaign for them. And, was doing really well in psychology. And he was like, look at me, Stephanie, I'm a new man. And she's like, you are a new man. And she started going out with him, and when they got to the level where they were talking about getting engaged, he dumped her, and then what was it, about 2 days later went on
went on a killing spree
that lasted 5 years. So it's weird, because it seems like it's all some part of some grand plan with him, doesn't it? To I'm just gonna get her back. What then, Ted? I don't know, I've not thought that far ahead. Probably just kill some women though.
Yeah, he just hasn't. It's such a strange thing to do, to bear a grudge against somebody for that long and to plan and change your life I'm going to do this, you know, I'm going to do well, I'm going to study psychology, I'm going to become charming, she's really going to like me, I know she's going to like me, I'm going to make her fall in love with me. Added to this, he was working at the Seattle Crisis Centre as well, where he met Anne Rule, the author. That was a stroke of luck for her, wasn't it?
Basically, he was at like the Samaritans, and apparently he's very good. He sat next to Anne Rule, who's now a famous crime writer who wrote the book The Stranger Beside Me, all about how she basically sat next to Ted Bundy. Apparently he's very good at his job as well. She was like, you know, he's really good, saved a lot of lives. How do you know? You're not on. It's not like you've got targets, is it? Like, he could have been like, and then when someone left the office, been like, probably should just kill yourself though, shouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. There's no target. We don't want any swingers this week, Bundy.
Became sort of a functioning member of society, and then deliberately dropped out, and broke off the engagement, and then the murders began.
2 days later. I mean, it's such a weird scenario though, isn't it? Just like to get revenge on somebody, and then to go on a killing spree. Most people bearing a grudge like that, which is weird enough as it is, would then go, all right, that showed her. Not, let's go out and kill some people who like her.
Or when you get broken up with and you get your heart broken, you get drunk for 3 weeks, sleep with a load of guys, maybe dye your hair.
Yeah.
And
buy a new dress.
Buy a new dress, and maybe, I don't know, get your nose pierced or something you're going to instantly regret.
Yeah.
And then you're over it, you don't go, I'm going to win her back over the period of 3 years, get her to want to marry me, and then I'm going to kill a load of women. That'll show her. It's like, that's one hell of a long-term plan. But it's impressive. So he killed, in the first 6 months, other than the one that we think, that Rachel thinks he did as a kid. I think it's too tenuous. Killed 6 women in 6 months. It's all in Florida. He started off with Joni Lenz, who's an 18-year-old. This is really horrible. She lived in a basement room with some other students. He broke in and killed her in her bed. Did some horrible stuff to her with one of the bedposts.
Very aggressive sexual murders.
Yes.
Like some of the worst I think you can read about.
Yeah, I can't look at Hairspray ever again thanks to this. And then he killed Linda Ann Healy. So she was doing her local ski report on her way to that, and she didn't turn up for it. And then she didn't turn up for a family meal, and her parents called the police. They went to her room, and they went to her bed, pulled back the bed covers, and they were just soaked with blood. And her nightdress was there. So he moved her, he dressed her, put her in the car, and moved her, and took her away. And because he used to do weird stuff, we don't know to which women, and it's probably best that we don't know.
Yeah,
but
I think that's fair enough.
He used to do odd things to. There's like weird rituals, like he used to wash their hair, which is the creepiest Timothy advert I've ever heard. He used to put makeup on them as well, and sort of do them up. Some of the ones that he cut the heads off and kept in a fridge, he would do makeup on. Maybe he was just a beauty school dropout. Maybe he was a frustrated beautician.
The one thing that he hadn't tried that he should have done. Like, you've done Chinese, you've done psychology, Ted, you've done
law.
Law. How about beautician?
If only there was a scout badge for that, we could have saved all this.
The thing the reason they know this is because some of the girls were, one of the girls was found, we obviously don't know which one, which is fine, because I don't think everyone needs to know everything, wearing clothes and makeup that she would never have worn, which is creepy as fuck.
It is, because I've seen, when guys get those living dolls, how guys dress women is really peculiar, because it's like, no normal woman wears that little underwear and that much fishnet.
It's a cross between mum and slutty, isn't it? It's
Slut mom.
Slut mom. It's horrible.
And the makeup as well is like they're in some kind of 80s new romantic. Yeah,
lots of blues and pinks.
Yeah, lots of blues and pinks.
That pearl lipstick that where'd
you
even
find
come
it?
from?
Yeah, I think I saw it once on a market stall.
Never seen it in my life.
She was found later on in what came to be known as Bundy's graveyard, which was a patch up by was it like up in a forest somewhere?
Yeah, it was in a forest, in the mountains, in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and they found all sorts there. Bundy's graveyard sounds like the worst theme park,
yeah, it
doesn't
it? Welcome to Bundy's graveyard.
It's like Blobbyland, the one that's now locked up in Sussex.
Just as dangerous. He used to go back to the bodies as well, didn't he? He'd murder people, girls, throw them out into the wilderness, and keep returning to the bodies over a period of a few days until the decomposition and animals had been at the corpse.
Yeah, he'd go back and have sex with them or put makeup on them he said until the decomposition got too much. It's like, when is it... I love that, like the suddenly standards. When is it too much?
Well, I never did it more than 2 weeks in. He's so arrogant. He's murdered this girl horrifically, raped her, attacked her, done all the rest of it. And then she's dead, and he still can't leave her alone. He's still going back and having a go.
Come on, mate.
Just leave it, Ted, please.
The third victim was Donegall Mason. She was just crossing the campus, and she had quite an erratic lifestyle. She used to disappear, go hitchhiking, was into the occult and things like that.
Sounded a bit of a free spirit.
Yeah. And so she was 6 days before anyone was like, do you reckon Donna's coming back? So they didn't start looking for her for a while. But yeah, she was a Bundy one as well. And the fourth victim was Suzanne Elaine Rancourt. And then, oh God, it's just a list of names now. Brenda Baker, Roberta Parks, Brenda Carol Ball, Georgina Hawkins. Then there was the two in a day. Oh, in fact, Georgina Hawkins is quite an interesting one because he managed to snatch her from... She was walking down an alleyway from her boyfriend's. She stopped at a friend's window that was 30 yards away from her boyfriend's house, sort of had a chat through the window, and then just had to walk 40 feet down a really well-lit alley to get to her room, and he snatched her in that time. So he was getting to be a real kind of expert by this point.
And we must stress as well that his victims all look similar to his ex-girlfriend that
it's
besmirched him. Dark hair, parted in the middle, small a lot of the time. I would have made quite a good
you would.
I think, yeah. Also, when he used to have little ploys to appear vulnerable to women, didn't he? So he'd rock up with his arm in a sling, or he'd be on crutches, or he'd be carrying loads of books.
He had casts that he would make because they found plaster of Paris in his flat. So he would basically... He said that I listened to a psychologist talking about him, and it said that he could see by looking which girls were right for him, and they think that he preyed on kind of weak, obliging girls. So he'd be able to scan a room and be like, oh, she looks quite shy and like she might help me, and he'd approach them with a cast and be like, can you just help me with these books? And then he'd take them back to his VW Beetle, the most evil of all the VWs. As we know, Hitler had something to do with that car. And that's when he would kind of get them. There was a really interesting thing. He started to get really cocky by now, but he killed so many women and got away with it that also by this time they knew that they were looking for a certain type. They were all brown hair, centre parted. You know what? Tell the girls that. Let them start wearing a side parting.
Let people know. Get a bit of information out there. But again, nobody connected anything for ages, did they?
No.
Again, this was the problem. A lot of the time as we do this podcast, it seems that no one knows what the fuck's going on half the time.
Yeah.
There can be 10 murders and everyone's like, all right, oh, bloody hell. And nobody's doing anything about it.
And the Volkswagen, they described it, some people said it was white, some said it was gold, some said it was black, some said it was brown, some said it was beige.
But a Volkswagen nonetheless.
Yes, but a Beetle, which is quite a distinct car. Maybe not in the 70s,
maybe
though.
Not in the 70s,
maybe it was like the Ford Focus of the day. But there was this day, so there was a really hot day, and everyone went down to the state park, and he was there wandering around on crutches, and he approached like 6 or 7 different girls, said, hi, my name's Ted. As you can see, I can't use my arm. Can you help me get my kayak? Why is he going kayaking then, girls?
Well, yeah, you really could have...
Can you help me get my kayak off my car roof? And 2 of them went, yeah, sure. And those 2 were Janice Ott and Denise Naslut, who are now no longer with us because he killed them. He got 2 in one day.
I was saying, like, when we started doing this podcast, we used to say, God, is it, 2, Jack the Ripper, 2 in one night. Was it Peter Curtin? 2?
Yeah.
I'm like blasé about it now.
Yeah. 2? Come on.
It happens more. I think John Wayne Gacy did a couple in the space of a few hours. I'm like, all right, that isn't that shocking anymore.
No.
That 2.
I suppose if they get the opportunity, they just do it, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, he was just... 2 in a day.
He would have done more because he approached sort of 6 or 7 women altogether. So much so that they basically put a description out. There's a drawing that you can see online of him, which is uncannily like his... It looks like Leo Sayer, but also like it looks just like him at that time. They got... Because normally those pictures are like... Everyone just sort of looks like that guy who was once on Hollyoaks.
Yeah, and then they only look like the person... Because when you see the person who's been caught, you go, oh, actually, maybe it does look a bit
if you squinted,
like
yeah. It's not black though, but yeah, the drawing is really, really like him, and he used his own name. And I listened to this great interview with one of his mates at college who was like, because everyone knew this guy called Ted was abducting women who drove a Beetle, and they were like, oh, maybe it's Ted Bundy, and had a joke about it. They're like, and that's why he's out all the time, we never see him. But it was so ridiculous then, they just laughed about it. So if you take anything from this podcast, we've learnt this from the BTK thing, from the wife being like, you spell like BTK.
You spell like BTK.
If you ever think your friend might have something similar to a serial killer, just pop a call into the police.
Just, you know, it's
just check the search history.
It's probably nothing. It's a bit like, you know, checking your boobs for lumps. Just
check your friends for mental disorders.
It's probably nothing, but just get it checked out.
It's 2 in a day at the park, and then everyone was really frightened then. There was the other ones before he moved to Utah, but he killed Karen Campbell, Julie Cunningham, Denise Oliverson, Melanie Cooley, Shelley Robertson. Now these he didn't confess to until he was on death row, but we'll come back to that later.
Sorry to ruin the ending.
Yeah, spoiler alert, the ship sinks. Then he moved to Utah and he killed 6. And then Carol Durant, who became quite important in the case. So she was out shopping. He approached her and said, I'm so sorry, your car's been broken into. I'm a police officer. You better come with me. And she just followed him, didn't she?
Yeah, thinking there was nothing wrong, you know, as he'd be like, all right. Then she said she got a bit of a feeling of apprehension about him. I think he said his name was Officer Roseland or something like that. It's okay, I've got a romantic name, follow me.
Officer, trust me, come this way.
Officer No Murders. So she went with him and got to the car. I think they checked her car, and then he said, you have to come in my car, which she got into.
Who gets into a Beetle and thinks, this probably is a police officer's car?
Realised that
with no interior as well, because he'd ripped it out, so it was easier to kidnap people.
So he hit the poor girl over the head, not Carol Durant, because this one went awry, as we'll tell you, but he usually used to go, help me to my car, hit the girl over the head with something. Just throw her in the car, she's on the floor, no one can see, no seat in the car. There was no handles really on the inside to get out of the car either. So you're trapped effectively in a car with Ted Bundy. But Carol Durant, he tried to handcuff her. She jumped out, still cuffed.
Of the moving car.
And escaped.
Which is badass.
Yeah, well good. And an elderly couple that were passing just at the right time saw her, and they took her to the police station. Managed to give a good description of Ted Bundy, which came into play a little bit later on. Yeah,
because she was one of the ones who identified him from a lineup when the police eventually caught up with him.
The police he was a master of disguise. No, he wasn't.
If master of disguise means any man who can grow his hair and beard a bit, then they walk amongst us, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't recognise my boyfriend when he's had his hair cut. When he comes in, I don't go, who are you?
Are you Ted Bundy?
Are you Ted Bundy?
But yeah, I don't think he was a master of disguise, because he looks so much like himself in all the pictures. He's got such a distinct nose. He looks like a seagull.
He's got a very long, pointy nose.
Yeah, quite a beaky nose.
I think his mouth's very distinctive as well.
Yeah. So he killed 3 more in Oregon as well, and then the police sort of caught up with him because he was driving erratically, weaving in out of lanes. They pulled over this Beetle, searched the car, and in the back they found a balaclava, a crowbar, some rope, some plaster of Paris, a torch, handcuffs, and a pair of tights with like eye holes and a mouth hole cut in them.
Are you reading my Christmas list?
It's my secret Santa I got. I know it is from now. And then the police were like, why have you got all this shit? He was like, oh, this is just normal stuff people have in the car. They're like, no, it's not. You're going to come with us.
Well, then a whole load of receipts and maps linked him to Colorado, where there'd been shitloads of murders.
So they started to piece everything together.
And Carol Durant ID'd him in the ID parade. So,
thank God Carol got away.
But a lot of his friends, is a documentary you can watch, and a lot of his friends, because he was he joined the Republican Party, and he was allegedly quite a promising young politician. A lot of his friends on this documentary, one of them was going, well, we couldn't believe it. We were like, this can't be Ted, and we set up a fund to like get him released.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I love that they were fundraising for that, because then when they found out, what were they like, oh God, what are we going to do with the rest of the money? A plaque, but plant a tree? This is where it starts to get really interesting, because he is totally bonkers, and he's like this charismatic supervillain. So he decided to represent himself, and after everyone going, don't do that, he was like, I'm going to do it. I'm smart enough to do it. So he went and he said, listen, I need to go to the library to research some stuff. And because he was representing himself, he was allowed not to wear handcuffs and leg shackles. So like, cool, no problem. He's like, cool, I'm just going to pop behind this bookshelf here. They're like, okay, no problem, I'm sure that's fine.
Yeah, don't mind me, just behind this bookshelf near the exit.
Yeah, and near an open window that when you stepped out of it, you were just out. So he just jumped out the open window, took his clothes off, he had some clothes underneath, and then just walked out into the street, went to the bar and had a drink, and then trekked up into the mountains where he hid for 6 days. He was trying to head to the road on the other side, and he got lost, like really lost, broke into cabins and stole guns and food and clothes and things, but apparently was really near the path like twice that would have definitely led him out, but was just like, I'll just keep going in the opposite direction a little bit further. And then eventually he stole a car, was driving along, and then got to a roadblock where the police were obviously like trying to hem him in. They knew he was there somewhere. He saw that, did a handbrake turn, and they were like, well, that's clearly him. Pulled him over, and he was arrested again. And then on New Year's Eve in 1977, you think New Year's Eve is significant, don't you?
New Year's Eve, New Year's Day in prisons, there's a lot of things happen. Not fun, don't worry. There's a lot of suicides and escapes, attempts as well, will happen because New Year's Day, I think Shipman and I think Fred West as well, they are examples. They kill themselves in prison on New Year's Day because prisoners are left unattended for longer than usual.
Right.
I don't know what it's like in America. It's definite that in Britain, prisoners are left longer on New Year's Day with less checks because they're eating
skeleton
food
stuff.
In the room. Yeah. Very scary. And yeah, this is why a lot of suicides take place then. Because they know they're going to be left. I don't know if that's changed. Do you think it would have done?
Yeah.
Because if
that's common knowledge now.
Hold on a minute. New Year's Day. That's a bit... But yeah, there's been quite a few instances. But yeah, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. Traditionally, shit's going down.
And other stuff are hung over as well. So
God.
Just like give him his shoelaces back. It's fine.
Just go and check on Bundy. Can't be bothered.
So he escaped now from his room. There was, but it does sound like it was really lax. Basically, there was in his ceiling there was like an air vent or a light vent, something that he could take out. Basically, he decided he was going to starve himself, so he lost a load of weight so he could get through. He plumped up his bed with cushions and books. Like a freaking, like Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
I was going to say, it's like something you do to like, shimmy down a drain pipe, innit?
So he did that, because they didn't find him for hours. It was 11 hours before they realised he'd gone. So he jumped up into the vent, crawled through, and then dropped down into the office next door, put on some new clothes, and just walked out the prison.
Into a blizzard, apparently. The weather was terrible.
Yeah, and that was in sort of like January of 1978.
Can you imagine her being in prison, like being the prison officer and being like, oh shit, he's got out again. We are in so much trouble. Oh, that's like the worst day at work, innit?
No, that must be really, really bad. Especially as 2 weeks later he went on a massive killing binge.
You would feel so bad.
And one of the reasons, because this is the last, this seemed to be his most violent episode.
Yeah.
And the psychologist I was listening to said it might have been just because he was killing about a woman a month before that. And obviously he hadn't killed for a while because he'd been locked up. So he'd been killing about a woman a month. But because he'd been locked up for so long, they think it might have just been him like, oh, I need to get this out of my system. So he went to the Chi Omega sorority house. It was 2 weeks after he got out.
Which he managed to escape to Tallahassee in Florida.
Yeah, because he got, he was 1,000 miles away before they even realised that he'd gone missing.
He'd managed to do a proper runner.
Yeah, good skills. So what he did was this
How
girl...
come those trains on New Year's Eve? That would never happen here.
No, it wouldn't.
Just be stuck
He'd be on a rail replacement bus, wouldn't he? He was found 2 miles away, still at the bus stop,
begging to be sent back to prison.
This girl came home one night to her sorority house, and as she was opening the door, a guy pushed past her with a lump of wood in her hand and sprinted past. She went up to tell the president of the sorority about what had happened, and as she turned around, a girl came out, one of the girls, I think it was Karen Chandler, came out of her room. She said, Karen, did you see that guy? And realised that there was just blood all over this poor girl's face because she was attacked. Kathy Kleiner was attacked as well, and it was really, really brutal. Sort of, they were missing teeth. Some of them had permanently loose teeth for the rest of their life. He killed Lisa Levy, she became quite important in his prosecution as well. Did some really horrible things with a hairspray can to her. I'll let you read into that.
These are just like I said, the most violent sexual murders. I think he must have been in a complete frenzy.
Yeah, because because they had like the girls had whiplash and broken collarbone. They had injuries as if they'd been in a car accident, and it was just him in there. But Lisa Levy, he had bitten through one of her nipples and bitten her like left buttock so hard he left teeth impressions, which were then used to prosecute him because a teeth impression is as unique as a fingerprint. So they managed to. He had quite unique teeth anyway. I think that's the way of Americans saying British teeth.
Yes.
So
Very British teeth.
So they made a cast, and that was one of the things that actually got him prosecuted was his bite marks left.
I mean, to bite somebody that hard as well.
Oh, it's horrible. Like, I struggle with halloumi sometimes, let alone getting through that. Margaret Bowman as well, he killed. Her skull was completely caved in. And Cheryl Thomas as well was another one that was attacked.
Attacked, left to die, but she lived as well. That's 5 women attacked in one night.
It's crazy, and two of them were in the same room together, and some of them, well, I don't know if the girls were in the room at the time, but they certainly shared rooms with people. But one of them it was Kathy Kleiner, didn't know she was attacked because she was asleep when it started, and then he must have just knocked her unconscious and gone to town on her, which is horrendous. We should mention about Debbie Harry here.
Yeah, there's...
This is weird, isn't it? That's a bit out of nowhere.
Anyway, Debbie Harry. Debbie Harry did an interview a couple of years ago where she said that Ted Bundy attempted to abduct her. Now,
she's a blonde for a start.
She's a blonde.
Famously, she's a blonde.
She said this happened in New York. He wouldn't have been in New York.
No.
Vermont, Philadelphia, yes. New York, I'm sure he went at some point in his life. I mean, who hasn't? But it just doesn't ring true. It was too early for all these murders. I think it was before he started his actual, big time killing. Big time killing.
Big time killing.
Big time killing with Ted Bundy.
And Debbie Harry. What did you add?
She said that this Volkswagen Beetle pulled up. She was walking home late at night in New York. The bloke in the car, who stank by all accounts, said, do you want to lift? Or ride, as they say in America. She said yes, got in the car, realised that the car was, had been adapted. There was no seat. You couldn't get out, and she managed somehow to escape from the cab and run away. And she says that person who tried to abduct her was Ted Bundy. I think someone did try and abduct her, but I don't think it was Ted Bundy.
Oh, maybe there's a copycat killer, because you do get those, don't you?
Yeah, you do, but the
timelines don't work out, do they?
The timelines don't work out, and I'm really sorry, Debbie.
You're a bullshit. Sorry, Debs, you're a bullshitter.
Sorry, Debs, it wasn't Ted Bundy.
The last person he killed was little Kimberly Leach. She was just 12 years old.
12 years old.
So to me, that was because all the others had been sort of about the same age, young college girls, but this was a little girl. This is a horrendous story as well. She left her purse in her class when she was doing PE. Teacher was like, well, we'll run and get it. So she had to run to a different building. Sent another little girl with her. They were coming back. The little girl that was sent with Kimberly went, oh, I've left something in the classroom. She's like, right, will you go back and get it? And then little girl went back and then couldn't. The last thing she saw was Kimberly being screamed at by a guy who was pushing her into a white Dodge van, which we know Bundy had stolen from the university campus. And she went back and told the teacher, and the teacher didn't do anything about it because they thought it was just a relative. Like, oh, brilliant, that's perfect. That's the 70s, is it?
Oh, yeah, that'll be her Uncle Bobby. He's always angry and drunk. Nowadays, alarm bells.
He was spotted later on as well. This white Dodge van was spotted sort of weaving all over the road. You can see the driver, who's Ted Bundy, screaming at the little girl in the passenger seat. And again, no one really did anything about it. And then she went missing. And 8 weeks later, they found her body, which is just really, really sad. Mm-hmm. He was such a weird one as well. So we'd kill all these women, would put makeup on them, cut their heads off in some cases, would have sex, ever have sex with them after they had died. It was always necrophilia.
He also said, there was an interview with him, and he said, murder isn't about sex, it's not about lust, it's about possession.
Then why fuck him?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. And why he claimed a lot of reasons why he did what he did as well.
Oh, he's Billy Bullshitter when it comes to all this.
Oh, he's full of shit. The first one was, he said he used to buy magazines as a kid. He was obsessed with the True Detective magazines. So the sort of 40s, 50s looking ones that are quite sort of pulp magazine things.
Yeah.
So they'd have like a skeleton strangling a woman.
Yeah.
It was always a woman in peril, and men either attacking her and a man coming to save her, those kind of stories. He said he was obsessed with them. Then he claimed to Anne Rule, who kept in contact with him throughout, because she's not daft, dollar signs in her eyes.
Yeah,
there, Anne Rule.
she's smart.
She claimed that he said he never read any of these things.
Yeah.
That he'd never read one in his life. But I think that's because he became quite arrogant and he thought he was dead intelligent. And he was like, oh, I can't have people thinking that I read those magazines. It's like if people found out I read Chat magazine, I'll take a break on it as a guilty pleasure. I'd be slightly, well, you all know now. We're all friends. But then he claimed, when it was coming towards his execution, that it was pornography that made him do his murders.
Yeah, there's a terrible documentary called Natural Porn Killer. You can see it on YouTube, and that's all about how the church kind of used him, exploited him as a poster boy for the ills of pornography. And he was like, there is definitely, he's like, no one mass murders, or no one is a serial killer who isn't obsessed with pornography. But it's like, well, pornography is so widespread now that if that was the case, we'd have just as many serial, like the how much it's watched, we would have just as many serial killers. The increase would be just as great. So I think he's bullshitting again.
He's bullshitting.
The trial's really interesting because he represented himself.
Of course he did.
Even though everyone was like, don't do that, you didn't do very well in your law degree, don't you remember? He's like, no.
You've never finished anything. You'll be better teaching them how to say hello in Chinese. You know nothing.
The judge complimented him, though, at the end of the trial.
Yeah, he said he would have made a very good lawyer. I don't think any of this is true. Like, the way you can watch clips of it on YouTube, he's aggressive, he's, like, creepy, he's arrogant.
He has temper tantrums.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe he would have made a good lawyer. Maybe he just saw these qualities and he was like, oh, actually, I have to backtrack on that. But he just... The thing is, everyone goes, oh, he's charismatic, he was handsome. He was not really good looking. He was just less ugly than other murderers.
Yeah, he just doesn't...
Like,
so
Richard
obviously,
Ramirez was less ugly than other murderers. He wasn't a good looking bloke. He was normal looking.
And also, so what if he's good looking? Like, if I find out that Ryan Gosling has been cutting the heads off college students, I won't be like, but he was really good in The Notebook and I think he's got kind eyes. I'd just be like, oh, well, he's now utterly repulsive.
Well, I would be really, like I've said, say for example, you like fancy somebody in the public eye and you go, oh, you read a bit of gossip about him, oh, there he is, and you find out, say, he's cheated on his wife. I'm always like, oh, why has he done that? I'm really disappointed in him. Yeah. I'm talking about Danny Dyer here.
Oh, really? I'm thinking when I found out that Gary Barlow doesn't pay taxes and support the Conservative Party, I was like, oh, Bazza, mate.
You always feel slightly disappointed. You was like, oh, why has he done that? Or, oh, what are they doing that for? But if I found out that somebody had been murdering women and chopping their heads off, you'd go, oh, shit. Oh, can't. You would instantly be repelled.
Yeah.
By that kind of thing. Oh, you should be. You certainly still wouldn't want to sleep with somebody after that.
Yeah, totally. He was quite a ladies' man though, because all these little serial killer groups that I've been dipping in and out of to promote the podcast.
And you know who you are.
Yeah, I've left Facebook because of it. It was too much for me. They love Ted Bundy. He's like one of their favourites to make memes out of. And it happened during the trial as well. Wouldn't you say that just women... I know there was one woman in particular, because he got a part of the charade of the trial was he found this loophole that if there was a judge present, that you can make a marriage legal. So he called his then girlfriend, Carol Ann Boone, as a witness, and then was like, Carol, will you marry me? And she was like, yes. And he's like, well, fuck you guys, because this is now legal.
It was really shit how I did it as well, because he says something like, he goes, so, Carol, do you want to marry me? And she goes, yes, I do. And he goes, well, I want to marry you too. And that's... it's horrible. And in general as well, he was quite... he wasn't as smart as he thought he was. And he was really cringeworthy. He was very confident in himself, but in a David Brent kind of way.
Oh, that's exactly it, yeah.
Yeah.
He's that kind of like the perfect storm of stupidity and blind confidence. Yeah. That's what he had. So
he acquired a wife, and he had a gallery of groupies who used to come in every day. Loads of women who, disturbingly, several of them started to dye their hair dark and part in the middle and wear hoop earrings, because that is sort of the traditional Ted Bundy victim. They started to try and look like...
There was one in particular I remember reading about. That's so creepy. One in particular that was really obsessed with him and used to just sit there mouthing, "I love you." And he wrote to Carol Ann and was like, "Oh God, can you try and get her to not come in because she's really freaking me out now?" And it's like, if Ted Bundy is saying that you are freaking him out, then it's time to take a long look in the mirror at your now brown hair and centre-parted face and go, "Oh, come on, mate, let's sort this out. Let's just get on Match.com.
Ted Bundy calling you weird. That is... Ted Bundy called you weird. It's just horrible, isn't it?
Anne Rule came to the court, the crime writer that he worked with at the Samaritans, or the crisis line, whatever you want to call it. She came to the court, and apparently cause she was convinced he was innocent. And then when all this stuff was coming out that was so clearly him, she said that one day he walked past her and was like, "Oh, I don't know why they're saying this about me." And she was like, "You just believed him because he was so..."
"Hey, Anne, have you heard this? What a load of rubbish." But fortunately the problem is, I think if you work with somebody, and especially at a crisis thing, and you know them, and he was quite nice to her as well, wasn't he? They got on quite well and everything. To see them then accused of these murders, and if you're an aspiring crime writer, you're going to be like, seriously, have I hit the jackpot here?
Yeah.
You're going to be slightly...
She's bought a house off that. I hope she's called it the Bundy Bungalow. Because, like...
she's... The bungalow.
There's a crawl space. Because she's done really well out of that.
Yeah, she has. And I've read several of her books, actually. I wonder if she's listening. I bet she keeps up with Ted stuff. She has a Ted update page, doesn't she?
Oh, she does, yeah.
Hi, Anne, if you're listening.
Hello, Anne. Rachel said she was surprised by your voice, but there we go.
Yeah, you've got quite... he talks like this.
I think that's an offensive impression. But we've probably said more offensive things.
Yeah.
So he was sentenced to death via the electric chair, but it took them like 10 years he was on death row for. He kept
kept saying, "Oh, I'll tell you stuff about these murders that you don't know I've done," and he'd sort of stop, and then he'd try and he'd do interviews, that's probably what I said, "Oh, it's pornography that made me do it," because people are like, "Oh, we've never heard this before properly from an actual nut job. Let's hear what he's got to say." Then he kept getting stays of execution, sometimes minutes before he was due to be electrocuted.
This would have only added to his god complex as well.
Well, we didn't say before, it was on the FBI's most wanted list, and apparently he loved that.
Got it on a t-shirt.
He was proper like, he thought, "I've made it." He'd like
got
me
coasters,
getting a stadium tour and stand up. That was Ted's moment.
He as well tried to get, I think this is another thing for fame, but when they were searching for the Green River Killer, Gary Ridgway, before they knew who it was, because I think he was killing people for like 30 years before they found out who it was, he volunteered. He said to the police, "I'll give you a serial killer's insight," and tried to help them on the case. But like, "Mate, you're thick as pig shit, Ellsworth." His wife divorced him because she was sure that he was innocent, Carol Ann Boone, and then when she realised, she divorced him immediately.
Yeah.
But unfortunately...
Strap yourselves in for this one.
Because he strapped himself into her at some point, and she was pregnant by him.
She's got a daughter. Allegedly, this child was conceived in the prison behind a water cooler.
That's very sexy, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure how true this is. People do say it is his child, who will be about 32 now. And one of the guards at the prison did say to a documentary film that he thinks what might have happened, that she would have kissed him, say hello, and passed a condom to him through the mouth. Then he would have then done his business in that and then given it her back in the mouth.
That is so sweet.
I know. I hope I find someone that loves me so much one day. It could be his kid, but regardless of that,
I tried to do a little bit of Googling, and Caroline Boone moved and just sort of disappeared with the daughter, which is probably the best thing for both of them, because, I mean, if you just if you love someone, you're convinced they're innocent, and then you find out that they're not, it must be horrendous. And the fact that you've got a child by them as well must be really hard for everyone. So hopefully they're just getting a bit of peace and quiet. But it's not long before some absolute crazies find her on the internet, because they hate Caroline anyway, don't they?
Well, this is the thing. Ted Bundy, right? The women that became obsessed with him, they're still around today in their thousands. There's websites that we've looked at out there that are just creepy.
I've not
as
been on
fuck.
them.
I'm taking you with me on this one, right? Creepy as fuck. There is Ted Bundy fan fiction. One of the stories was Ted Bundy getting it on with Jeffrey Dahmer.
Jesus Christ.
We must stress as well, we're not those kind of women that actually find serial killers attractive, and that's part of the worry we're doing this podcast. We're just interested in the psychology. We do not want to sleep with these people. So you've got Ted Bundy, who these serial killer groupies, really, I suppose they are, love. Richard Ramirez. Jeffrey Dahmer crops up every so often as like the gay best friend that they want. So basically these women want to marry Ted Bundy, they want to sleep with Richard Ramirez, and they want to go on a night out with Jeffrey Dahmer.
It's the best, it's the best shag marry cruise you've ever heard of, isn't it?
But these websites, they're horrible as well. There's one website that's like, and I'm sure when we put this podcast out, I'll bet you 50 quid that they will listen to this podcast.
Oh God, they're going to get death threats.
So what are they going to do? Come around here and shout at me a bit?
Don't encourage them, please.
I cut that bit out.
Yeah.
I think they will listen to this podcast. But these websites are quite disturbing, because they set talking about Caroline Boone, and they're going, yeah, here's Ted with his daughter, and I just want to cross this woman's face out, and it's scary shit. A lot of women think, oh, maybe I could change him. If he was with me, he wouldn't have done those things.
I think some of the women wouldn't want to change them, because part of the attraction is to be with someone who's got that notoriety and that edge of danger. Yeah, I do think that's what it is. There was a huge sort of circus over his execution as well, with people standing outside and candlelight. Some people supporting it, some people saying he was innocent, he shouldn't be executed. It was a bit of a debacle, wasn't it?
Well, can I just say, I mean, I don't actually agree with the death penalty, because I think I'm not getting into the argument now, but I find people who stand outside those prisons, they are the worst kind of people. The ones who the ones with the placards that say, burn, Bundy, burn, shit like that. I just think it's the lowest mentality. I hate those people with a passion. I think they're the same people that stand outside abortion clinics. I think they're the same group of people who don't understand anything. But they just go to these places.
They've got a pack of markers for Christmas.
Yeah, so they just, alright, fuck it, we'll go down there and kick off. I honestly have no time for these people, which is just as well, because I don't know any of them. But they just give me the creeps, and I just find it totally bizarre that you would take such... I mean, it's not like they're personally affected by it or anything like that, and to go down there giving it the big un, it's just fucking weird. I reckon if you said to half these people, okay, we've got time travel, you're standing outside here and Ted Bundy's going to be executed, but we can go back in time to his mum and we tell her, and she's going to have an abortion, Ted Bundy's never going to be born, they'd be like, oh shit, I don't know what to do.
I'd just make him stay in church, I think. Alright, well that's all solved then.
I'd just make him mix well with others.
There's a weird legacy behind him, of him being this kind of like sexy, romanticised, whatever he is, pin-up for serial killers. He's one of the most popular, I've noticed, for them to make memes out of. It's a really weird thing, this serial killer meme business. So they get a picture of him and be like, hey, this is crazy, my name's Ted Bundy and I like killing ladies. It was one of the ones that I saw, which just made me feel ill.
Oh, please.
So he's I think he's another one who's embedded himself in pop culture. He wasn't necessarily the most violent or the most horrific or the most prolific, but something about him, and I think it's just because he's pretty, that well, comparatively so, that means that he is, because he's one of the most famous ones.
Is that the Harry Styles of...
yeah, because if you think of the Green River Killer, killed way more over a much longer period, but he's just like average Joe, 40-something when he was caught, and everyone's like, I don't give a shit. Was it Gary?
Is that it?
Ooh. And be like, oh, Ted Bundy, though. He's exciting.
Well, it was weird, because I went to watch a... Halloween it was a thing about serial killers. It was this show this ex-copper did. And he actually said, he went, Now, we're going to come up to... People say, oh, I shouldn't have a favourite serial killer. But a lot of women always come up to me and go, oh, you're going to do him? And I said, I bet it's Ted Bundy. And he was like, women come up to me and go, oh, are you going to do Ted Bundy? I love Ted Bundy. He's my favourite.
No, it's not a sexy thing, women. Come on.
Yeah.
I don't even get it when people write to them.
I don't actually think they should be allowed. I've said this before. I think...
I love how hardline you are with all this shit.
I'm quite... Yeah, I'm very conservative about my prisons.
You are, yeah.
I think if you're in prison, you should only be allowed letters from immediate family, friends that you had before you were incarcerated. These little groupies should not be allowed to write to you. I think these letters should be burnt. Not just ripped up, burnt.
And then we'll find books as well, and then we'll burn some of them. And then it artwork that doesn't fit with your...
books, and they can paint. But I don't think contact with impressionable young women is the way forward.
Fair enough. So yeah, I think they should be a little bit stricter in prison because they need to have less escapes. In fact, when he was executed, they checked his cell afterwards, and 2 of the bars on his windows had been sawn through and then glued back in place with like a soap solution that he'd made. So he was clearly just on the verge of breaking out again. So it just goes to show that prisons need to keep a more careful eye on people, which sort of brings us on nicely to who we're going to do next time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because he died in prison, didn't he?
He did. Harold Shipman.
Keeping it local.
Dr. Death.
Dr. Death. I saw his table was for sale recently.
Oh yes, I saw that as well.
But
I certainly wouldn't want it.
No, I wouldn't want it. No, I've got no room in my house otherwise. No, I wouldn't buy murderabilia, as it's called. So this has been the All Killa No Filla podcast. This has been Ted Bundy. We hope you found it not too horrifying and quite interesting. So next time, as I said, we're going to be doing Harold Shipman. So yeah, thank you very much for listening.